Hey guys, sorry about that. We just cut off the stream there accidentally. That was my fault, but we're going to continue with the interview here with Jimmy Song on the perspective right here on the CryptoCast Network. We were just talking with Jimmy about we were just about to talk with Jimmy about the ideal characteristics of money, part of his article, and I'll bring that up in a second. But we were talking about scarcity and how important it was. And in fact, the fact that Bitcoin was the one that invented digital scarcity. And so now we're going to talk a little bit more about, the characteristics of money and why, Jimmy, tell us, why do you think that Bitcoin has all these characteristics that really make a great money?
Yeah. So the characteristics of an ideal money are, outlined in, these have been known, right? You want divisibility, you want fungibility, you want scarcity and bearer instrumentation and all that stuff. That's been studied by a lot of people, like going all the way back to like Aristotle. That's part of the human experience. You kind of already know because you try to trade for something like a book, and if you try to use that as money, it doesn't really work, and so on. You know what works, you know what doesn't. It's almost part of your instinct. But dividing it into the convenience and value properties, I think helps solidify what it is that we're missing in society today. And it is not convenience features, right? There's a lot of other things that already have convenience features. PayPal, debit cards, credit cards, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, Google Wallet, Apple Wallet, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. They're all there to be convenient. And really, what these companies are doing, and the reason why they've all entered this space, is because they know if they can just take like 0.1% of all transactions, and there's a lot of transactions that go through, that they can make a lot of money off of them. But store of value is a little bit different, and what makes money valuable, almost nobody except the consumer themselves, the one that holds it, really cares about, and that's how long, whether or not it can hold it for a very long time, hold that value for a long time. But those tend to be the important properties that are missing from the currencies that are currently out there. There aren't very many things that are that will keep value that easily, and the things that are tend to be very non-money like. So real estate tends to hold pretty well. Stocks, as long as you diversify in an index fund, tend to hold it okay. Bonds sometimes, but like they're not that liquid. They're not very divisible. They're not really bearer instruments. So they don't really have many of the good properties that you would look for when you're trying to store wealth. A lot of the past 100 years, there came this new profession called like a financial advisor, or investment advisor, or something like that. That didn't really exist when we had hard money, when people just kept their money in gold. Part of what the advent of that is because people couldn't keep their money in gold anymore, because government seized the gold, and they imposed legal tender laws, and started forcing people to utilize their currency. And as a result, what's happened is people instead are had to have some other way to store their wealth or keep it, and it's a large part of quote unquote investing has become, is just making sure that you don't lose money as a result of these terrible stores of value that currencies have become.
Absolutely. And, we can see this throughout time. People trying to print money, people trying to create artificially create these characteristics of money, even through, like you say, through media, Jimmy, through things like saying, hey guys, look, we are decentralized, right? We have Ripple over there, the company saying, we are going to make XRP more decentralized, quote unquote, more decentralized. When it baffles the mind. But I think what I'd really like to drive home here is the fact that Bitcoin really is both digital and decentralized. So we have these
Mhm.
other digital currencies that you may think have all these great properties of money that because maybe the government tells you so. But in reality, when you compare them up against Bitcoin, when you compare their properties with Bitcoin, we can see that Bitcoin is both digital and decentralized and has all of these properties that make money, not just money, but hard money, as you say, Jimmy,
Mhm.
sound money, the money that we can build civilizations from. And
Mhm.
so I think that's just really, really important. And again, the second thing I want to drive home is what you said, is that it requires a long time. It
Mhm.
requires time for something to become a money. It has to become a collectible first, then a store of value. And then eventually, when people believe that this thing has value, that will hold value for the next day, for a year or 2 years or so on, that then they'll start actually using it as a medium of exchange. And that's something that the Keynesians like Roger just can't get around.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
you can
so
comment on that.
here's what he's doing, right? Like he's trying to shortcut to the I wouldn't say medium of exchange. I've stopped using that term. It's really more method of payment, because store of value is really a medium of exchange between you and your present self and your future self, and you want the ability to save for the future, and you're exchanging whatever money can buy you right now in order to allow yourself in the future to buy something nice then. So it's a medium of exchange, and store of value is a form of medium of exchange. But method of payment is just being able to do point-to-point stuff. The way that I think Bitcoin and other hard money eventually becomes method of payment is an important thing that maybe I left out a little bit in this article, but I want to touch upon it on your show, Vortex, because I think it's very important. So if you go to Venezuela right now, you'll find that people have some bolivars, people have harder currency like the US dollar or Bitcoin or whatever. And if they have the choice to go buy bread using bolivars, they'll of course buy bread with bolivars. And in fact, it's actually extremely difficult to buy bread with bolivars because there are giant lines anytime people have a chance to spend their bolivars. There's like really, really long lines because they want to get rid of that currency. In the black market, however, you try to pay them with bolivars, no one's going to take it. Right? Like they go, well, no, I'm not gonna take this currency, or they charge like a giant premium, or mostly they just go, no, I'm not gonna take it. Just give me US dollars or Bitcoin or whatever, something harder. It's demanded by the merchants. And that's at the point where it becomes a real method of payment, is when it's demanded by the merchants, not as an option, but the only way to pay. So, I mean, you're doing this with your seminar. I'm doing this with my seminar. Tone does it with his seminar. We demand Bitcoin, right? Because we don't want to keep it in dollars. And this is something that Roger's kind of like trying to shortcut, or a lot of these method of payment fetishists are more or less like trying to shortcut, which is, okay, well, we'll make it an option and then people will start using it that way and we'll start valuing it. That's not how it works. You have to value it first so much that you are willing to forego any other method of payment because it is just so valuable to you. And that's when we'll know it's going to turn into a method of payment. When you go into a store and you're like, can I pay with dollars? They're like, no, your dollars are no good here. I'm not gonna take that. You want this thing that is really valuable, you're going to actually have to pay me in Bitcoin. And that's I think at the transition point where it will actually be that. A lot of people are trying to shortcut that by getting them to take it as if that's a magical way to get them to desire Bitcoin instead. You can't coerce desire. It doesn't work that way. They have to want it on their own first before, it's kind of ridiculous that that's what it's come to. It's I believe a lot of the Bitcoin Cash people are like, yeah, if we just go to these companies and maybe pay them money or promise a lot of business, they'll take it and value it. I mean, it's kind of like getting a girl that's not into you to get her to like you by just promising her how you'll treat her or something like. It doesn't really work that way. They have to a much better strategy is to become valuable yourself. and then she might like you. But until that point, it's not really. It doesn't work that way. You don't get to act like you're dating her already, and as if that's like a way to get her to like you. That's what you do after. So anyway, all that to say, it's very, very premature to force a method of payment on somebody. That's what central governments do. That's what Keynesians do. And you could do that at the point of a gun. You're definitely not going to get that, be able to force that on others by like in any sort of voluntary libertarian kind of ethic. I mean, you can do it again by centralizing and saying, hey, you have to take US dollars or you have to take Bitcoin Cash or whatever. It doesn't work that way though. When people desire, when they trust it, when they think it's a better store of value than something else, and like the market between like, you know, Bitcoins and dollars becomes less liquid or something like that as a result of so many people wanting to go into Bitcoin, then you get hyper Bitcoinization or whatever. That's when the merchants are like, even I could even envision the US government being like, you know what, we could collect tax dollars in dollars, but if we collect in Bitcoin, this is going to be way more profitable for us. That's when it's like really going to happen. Then they start like using it as a reserve currency and all that stuff, because it's harder money. That's why central banks all have like hoards of gold. It's because they want hard money to backstop a lot of that stuff, and they want to be able to pay for things should everything go awry. So yeah, I mean that's it's just an aside there. I probably should have put that in the article.Maybe I'll write another one. I don't know.
Well, that's the whole reason why we have this show, Jimmy. Provide authors like yourself the ability to add a little bit more color and maybe something that they forgot or missed. So that's really great that you can add that here, and that's absolutely the entire reason for the show. So thank you for that, Jimmy. Really appreciate it. And you know, it's just so many good points here. The desire for scarce things, guys. Look, humans have this. We want these things that we think are valuable, that we think are scarce. And Jimmy just hits the nail on the head, I think, with this article about, look, you can try to do things like only sell your miners for BCH. Maybe try to create a little artificial demand, right? You can try to force these things, force us on money to be a method of payment. But at the end of the day, the emperor is going to have no clothes eventually. People are going to realize this. People are going to be wise because people are going to pass that potato on to somebody else. And we've seen the last person holding the potato in the case of BCH, which of course is Bitmain, with their over 1 million BCH
well,
stats.
not just them. There's like maybe 6 or 7 people from what I've read that have a third of all BCH ever, like in existence. It's kind of, yeah. I mean, they've more or less been a central bank that's been pegging the currency to Bitcoin, and they've been defending that peg, and of course, what happens when you're a central bank defending a peg? If the market like is going against you, you're going to run out of money, and that's more or less kind of what's happened. I wouldn't be surprised if most of these guys don't have any Bitcoin left at all because they've been defending it so hard, and then you end up with a precipitous drop, and then the market tells you exactly where that should be. I'm gonna guess it's gonna drop lower, but who knows? Like the market's the market. So
yeah, Tone and I and others, we've all been predicting Bitcoin Cash to go down to almost zero for a long time. But as you say, they do have the ability to create that peg. But again, it's only for so long because the demand is there for Bitcoin, and the demand is there because the desire is there, because we see the code, we see what people are trying to do. This united idea of a sound money is here in Bitcoin, despite what people like Krista Rose like to say, where we need to rein in the brand, despite what people like or status like Roger like to say, like there has to be a hierarchy. No, in Bitcoin, the ethos is nobody is in charge, and that's the way we like it. We like it to be meritocracy.
We're sovereign. We want to be self-sovereign over our own money instead of having Roger tell us what it is. And it's kind of sad how that whole side has gone in the sense that they're trying to create demand out of thin air, and without like the point of a gun, that's extremely difficult to do. And you know, like they've been trying to fund almost anything BCH related, and you know, like you can hire people to do stuff, but you can't cause them to want something that you want. You can't force passion on people. It's just something that really doesn't work. So
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree on that. Because we see, Jimmy. You teach Bitcoin development. You see all of the commits and all of the work that happens on Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis. There's just hundreds of commits on a weekly basis. There's so much passion and drive here, all for this one thing. To be a decentralized money, to have a monetary system with a monetary policy outside the control of a nation state or government. So that's really important. So, Jimmy, let's go ahead and finish it up with this last point here, because this is a big one that you put in the article about hacking trust. And so maybe you could just kind of tell us all, describe a little bit more about this and tell us all how are these companies achieving these billions of dollars of market cap, like Bcash and like BCH, like EOS and like Ripple. How are they hacking people's trust and kind of tricking them?
Well, so they get a lot of hype out there. They do a lot of promises. They use social signaling, to some degree, virtue signaling. I think one of the things I've learned over the past couple of years is one of the worst signals that you can give, or one of my heuristics is if they say some amount of money is going to charity, I automatically discount it. That means you feel the need to virtue signal because you're so scammy.
That's a good one.
And it's like anytime they do that, it's just like automatic no for me. Oh, we're gonna feed children in Africa with this coin. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's almost always some sort of way to run a bigger scam. But these are all ways in which they try to gain trust. It's all these other people trust us. Appeals to authority, all kinds of other. Socialing signals, all these other people are in it. And this happens all the time in normal business, but usually fiat money is involved. So you don't need to pay quite as much attention. But when there's hard money here, when they're asking for your Bitcoin, you should be extremely skeptical, because they're going to take your Bitcoin and run. And that's more or less what they've done. A lot of these ICOs have raised tons of money. I really would be surprised if most of them even deliver a 1.0 product, let alone have anything resembling a decent user base. So it's a way to hack trust. The nice thing, though, is that people are learning, and the community, or even individual investors, they're anti-fragile in a way, because once you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You're going to get to a point where a lot of people are immune to those kinds of things. When someone says, "Hey, we're gonna dig wells in Africa with this coin," they'll be like, "Bull." Like that. What the hell are you talking about? Like, we don't believe you, and you're trying to run some other scam or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways in which people try to signal that they're virtuous and good, and that they'll keep value. But the only real thing, the only certain way to find that out is with time, is by lasting. That's the only thing that proves immune to all sorts of weird attacks that you're going to get. And, this is, I think, the downfall of a lot of these coins, is that they haven't optimized for that. And they're mostly centralized anyway. So once they crumble, they'll just kind of die and maybe live like a zombie existence where people trade the tokens, but nobody's actually doing anything.
Yeah, and maybe they will be like this long-term collectible, right? Because as we know, blockchains rarely go to zero unless there's some kind of chain stopping bug, right, that just completely destroys the network. So likely these things will be. And of course, I was trying to tell people about BCH, about how they're going to eventually, I kind of made this prediction that they're just going to fork infinitely, right? They're just going to continue to fork because they have no basis. They have no foundation. Their entire basis is that we didn't want to be controlled, or we don't want open source development. That's basically their whole basis. We don't want anybody else's feedback. So what happens? There will, of course, be inevitable infighting. And we've seen the endless fork, and now we're seeing that they're just going to splinter and splinter and splinter infinitely. So it's really, really important to have this unified idea of what you're trying to do, of what you're building. And I think Bitcoin really has this, and is outlaid great in this article by wanting a sound money, by wanting something that's new, something that we can actually have and hold for generations to come. Because again, this is an age-old problem, guys. Money has been with us for thousands of years. And this is the first time that we've been able to create digital scarcity that is decentralized and available to all. Just a couple of years ago, only billionaires could really have the amount of control over the money that we have with Bitcoin. And now Bitcoin gives this to all and to everybody. So Jimmy, just again, great article. Maybe you can just close us up with a bit of a recap. And I think we can close it out after that.
Yeah, I mean, basically what we have is a lot of people that are in the centralized coins that are thinking, okay, well, I can do whatever I want and we'll run things much better because there's a one person in control or whatever. And I think that's the wrong way to look about it, because then they're sovereign over your money. We need to be sovereign over our own money. That's the premise of decentralization, digitization, and all that stuff. It makes it very convenient for us to be sovereign over our own money. And if you know anyone that's like lived through like 1929 or whatever, oftentimes that's what they'll tell you. We didn't trust anybody after that. We kept our money under a mattress or whatever. But our money itself is not really ours right now. We don't have property rights over our own money, because if you keep it at a bank, the government can seize it for almost any reason. They can say, you're related, this is drug money or this is whatever. We're going to shut it down. You don't have access to your own money. Or even if you have cold hard cash under your mattress, guess what? They can inflate it away. You don't really have sovereignty over your own money. With Bitcoin, that's different. You have sovereignty over your own money. And if you don't have that, with every altcoin, you still don't have sovereignty over your own money, because there's a centralization point. There's a trust that you have to put in somebody else. And that might add a little bit more efficiency. If you trust like a bunch of distributed proof of stake master nodes, then of course it's going to be faster. They get to decide whether or not you have a transaction go through or not. But that's throwing like you're letting cancer in so you can I don't know, like get rid of a cough or something. It's not a very good trade. And the trade-off, the main useful thing that you get out of Bitcoin is that scarcity, that self-sovereignty over your own money. What a lot of other coins are doing is throwing away that self-sovereignty in order to get you better features and make it more convenient. And that's a terrible trade-off. You already have lots of convenient stuff, people. Like you can use PayPal, you can use Venmo, you can use whatever. They're lots, 100 times more convenient, 1,000 times more convenient, probably 1,000,000 times more convenient than some of these other coins. So it doesn't make any sense. And the value prop around Bitcoin is that you actually are self-sovereign over your own money. So, think about that. And, if you are living for the long term, like many of us are, and not just trying to, get rich for 3 months and then blow all your money and then go home, then Bitcoin is the coin for you. If you want to, go on a wild roller coaster ride and have complete uncertainty about what tomorrow will bring for your coin, then, go to one of these altcoins or something. But yeah, that's my final take.
Awesome, Jimmy. Awesome. And of course, we're not here to really make you guys money. We're here to bring you the information that we believe to be true. I try to bring you people and guests that are in the ecosystem, like Jimmy, that is actually doing work in the space. And so it's just great to hear from these people that are doing hard work on the ground, spreading the message about Bitcoin, to hear that the message is still aligned. The value prop is still the same, which is digital scarcity, guys. Scarcity guaranteed, self-sovereign ability over your own money. And if you look at a lot of the, I think it's funny because if you look at a lot of the Keynesian like logos or people depicting Keynesians, it's always a snake eating itself almost, because this is what they're doing, guys. They're making these sacrifices that in the end end up harming themselves. And with Bitcoin, we remove that. We remove the third party. We remove the ability for somebody else to make that decision for you. And this is the value prop of Bitcoin. And again, guys, as Jimmy says, almost everything else promises what Bitcoin has, guys. Almost everything else promises what Bitcoin has, but none of them have Bitcoin's track record. its track record for delivery. So with that, Jimmy, we'll just close it out, and you can tell everybody where you can find him. And I think that'll be about it.
Yeah, Twitter, Jimmy Song, Medium, Jimmy Song, GitHub, Jimmy Song. My website is programmingblockchain.com. I run some carnivory dinners. I'm writing a book, and I'm a venture partner at Blockchain Capital. So lots of different things. Feel free to reach out if you have something that you want to pitch to me.
I can't count them all, Jimmy. I was trying to, and it wasn't working, man. So that's just some of the stuff that Jimmy's got going on, guys. And you all know Jimmy's Song, where to find him. And I'm sure he's going to have a bunch more stuff coming down the pipe. So again, definitely check out his workshop. And of course, I have my workshop as well. Jimmy is training protocol developers to work on Bitcoin, and I'm training web application developers or application developers to work with Bitcoin. And together, we hope that we can bring more awareness to Bitcoin, bring more developers working with Bitcoin. And I guess that'll be it. So until next time, guys, keep talking Bitcoin. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.